advice and all of the good things that you often give us to help to produce a good product and to serve the people that we are commissioned to serve. I know I have an agenda that says I have comments, but we're going to open. Okay, good. We're going to open with the approval of our minutes from the previous meeting, and then we will go into our public comment period, whereas each person commenting will have 3 minutes. We have to be disciplined and stick with the 3 minutes so that we can allow everybody to have their sufficient say. So actually that's a good thing because it teaches us how to get quite a bit done in short phrases and sentences. So with that, Ms. Carnes, I'm going to ask my fellow commissioners if they would take this time to approve our minutes from previous meetings, and we'll do so with a call vote.
Yes, sir. Do we have a motion for the approval of the minutes?
I motion that we ask for it.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Arrington?
Aye.
Mr. Conyers?
Aye.
Mr. Fraley?
Aye.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Courier?
Aye.
Dr. Smith?
Aye.
Chairman Albert?
Aye, thank you. And that brings us to the point of our public comment. And please be reminded that those of you wishing to make public comments at this time, you have 3 minutes to do so. Typically, we will open first with the callers or online comments. Do we have any?
At this time, we have no online questions and no comments in the chat.
All right, thank you, and forgive me for not giving you sufficient advance. Do we have any in-person public comments?
At this time, we have no in-person comments, but I will check the lobby to see if we have anyone else available.
All right. We're batting 1,000 this morning.
All right, good. Happy New Year.
Good morning, Amy.
We have no in-person comments at this time.
No in-person comments at this time. Well, that also saves us quite a bit of time.
You got it?
Thank you. That brings us to our executive director's period for his comments. Mr. Sims?
3 minutes, Nathan. I got time.
Mr. Sims Jr.
There you go. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Happy New Year, since this is the first official meeting of the year. Hope everyone is doing well. First, I did want to start out by just taking a moment to recognize. I'm good? No? All right, well, we're going to start this one more time. Good morning, everyone. So I did want to use this opportunity to really kind of recognize Pam Jones-Wofford. Pam has returned back to work, but for those who did not know, over the holidays, she lost her husband very suddenly. So Pam is our director of the Housing Choice Voucher Program, and so she has been a real trooper throughout this process, which is obviously very difficult. She is back with us, but we still continue to support her. So I want to use this as a moment to just recognize her and her family as they are dealing with the tragic loss of her husband. Next, I did want to talk about Oakleaf, and as everyone is aware, last Friday, between Thursday and Friday night, we had a fire at Oakleaf, and so some units did sustain some damage, and some individuals were displaced. As you know, the Red Cross is working with those families. We are working with those families. Our client services team is beginning to continue to engage them in terms of what their needs are. And so I will continue to work through those particular points. In terms of what I've been doing, I've continued to meet with a lot of different stakeholders on just a wide range of topics, from real estate to finance, to mental health, so all aspects in terms of what we do. And so while I don't have any announcements officially today, I do look forward to making some pretty solid announcements on a number of different fronts shortly. So it's 2024. It's the cliche New Year's resolutions. New year, new us, I guess. But I did want to lay an expectation as to what people should expect from NRHA in 2024. First, on the finance front, it is going to be a really kind of lean, mean type of operation. We've already started in terms of going over where we are with our current budget. Budget kickoff is about to commence within the next week. And so I think for the first time in a long time, the staff, the divisions will be actively involved in terms of the formulation of their budget. I always like to let people know the math is the math. And so we have to kind of work through that. But I think it starts there in terms of what our base foundation is. And I think that certainly the budget that we bring forward to the board to consider will be reflective of not just our values in terms of NRHA, but the people that we serve as well. So I'm excited about that. Client services, Julie's back there and his team, but not to put him on the spot, but I think it's certainly client services comes up in every conversation that we have in this organization, no matter what program area. And so I think that's a good recognition that it has to be continued woven in terms of what we do on a day-to-day basis. And so we look forward to continuing to support him and his team as they support the people, not only just in public housing, but also in our Housing Choice Voucher Program and some of our surrounding communities. Property management, more responsive, real-time data, doing things in terms of that makes a lot of sense. And everybody's heard me talk about, tackling things fairly early. And so tackling our centralized maintenance, situation and having different maintenances, levels of maintenance, obviously, which makes sense, given the degrees of specialized in general, it did not make sense to have separate departments. And so we have one central department under one leadership, and that is actually going pretty good. And we're excited about that. Housing Choice Voucher Program, I think that's the largest growing aspect of NRHA, right? So as we continue to convert our public housing, we're going to move to Housing Choice Voucher platform. So we have to invest in that, not only in terms of technology, but also our staff. And so we're looking forward to do that. We're also, because there's two sides to that, we have to make sure that we are clear of any kind of audit findings whatsoever, and that requires us to put good policies and procedures in place and making sure that our staff is properly trained. What people who are participants in the program should anticipate from a landlord perspective, we are going to roll out a better landlord engagement program, and in terms of incentives and things that we can do to attract more landlords to the program. For individuals who are participants in the program, we certainly are going to make sure that we introduce search assistance as part of that, which we refer to as mobility counseling. And so we think having someone we already have the liaison. The liaison is handling things at a different level, but having someone there who is present to work deeply with the properties to know ABC property has 3 units available and it's 2 bedrooms, two bedrooms and a 1 bedroom. To be able to know that and work through that is where we're trying to go. And that will help people as they search to make their search. To be clear, this is a very tight market. Everybody knows that. But I think the combination of providing search assistance and providing incentives to get more landlords aboard, that's our agency doing our part to make the process a lot easier. Lastly, from a real estate development and preservation aspect, we've already started doing the things that we need to. I appreciate the article you sent me. I know I didn't get a chance to respond back, but I think it's, all of our conversations about our real estate is really about how do we upgrade the living experiences of not only our current residents, but residents that we can serve in this community. I've been here now 9 weeks. I've seen the city in a multitude of points. I continue to discover new aspects of the city, which is great. But what is very clear to me is this organization has very much participated in the development of the city. And to be clear, to be further clear about this point, I do want people to understand that we serve all constituents of the city of Norfolk, right? So I know sometimes we're known for our public housing, and that is part of our portfolio. But as much as we have our public housing properties, a lot of people applaud the efforts of Broad Creek. Every conversation I have, people reference that. Former public housing site, has mixed income, has former residents, and looks very well. Well, that's reflective of our community. And that's what we're trying to bring to market in every opportunity that we're going to do. So we're going to move forward with our plan. We're going to be very thoughtful and intentional in terms of the development of our community, making sure that we get engagement as part of it. And to be clear, I never met anybody who doesn't like certain things, but they cost. And so it should be something that makes sense. But at the same time, from an organization standpoint, we should develop our brand. And we already have a quality and a standard out there in the community in terms of redevelopment. We need to return back to that. Lastly, because I know my 3 minutes is way over, is the organization is working to engage other agencies in terms of best practices. So example one, we're putting a trip together to visit the Tampa Housing Authority next month. For those who do not know, because they kind of keep a low profile, Tampa Housing Authority is one of the most transformative housing authorities in this country. They have used their opportunities to really create mixed income opportunities with mixed retail, mixed use. And I think it's good to bring our team around that to be able to understand some of the particulars that made it work, some of the particulars that didn't work, so that we can figure out what would work for us here. To be clear, I'm not trying to bring another city's anything to this city, but we have an affordable housing challenge. We have a housing challenge. We should get the best types of practices that we can and see how we can incorporate that into our mission. So that's trip number one. We have offers from other trips in terms of the Metropolitan Development and Housing Authority, which services Nashville, and as well as the Columbus Housing Authority as well. I'll stop there. Do you have any questions?
You really can take more than 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Only 10.
I yield back my time.
Any questions for Mr. Sims?
I'll just make a comment. I applaud your efforts to look at other communities around the country. You know, we can't function in a silo, and at least in the area that the arena that I work in, the concept of collaborative learning has kind of emerged, and that is to be able to draw on the expertise of people from around the country at a national level. And if there are best practices that can be adopted, if there are observations that can be made about what works and oftentimes what doesn't, that can be derived from other areas, I think that's a great idea. And then being able to identify elements of culture within other organizations that one would want to mirror or emulate. I think that's a good idea. It's great.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Sims.
Thank you.
Thank you for all that you do. And now we have any departmental updates? Okay.
Finance first.
All right. Mr. Scott Pons with trying to do too much at one time here. I've never been good at that.
Good morning and Happy New Year to everyone.
Good morning.
I wanted to briefly discuss some areas that were in the memorandum that are in your packet. Went over that with Mr. Fraley in a committee meeting. Dr. Smith was unavailable, but we did get it to you in advance. I wanted to highlight some things on top of what Nathan just told you with respect to the budget and some other items that are going on. HUD contacted us in early December and said that we came up for a capital fund monitoring review. And this is something that's standard over time. If you're in a housing authority for 10 years or so, you know, every now and then they come and take a look. It's not an audit. It's not inspector general audit. It's just them reviewing every aspect of the program. We are looking at it, not to speak for Nathan, but we are looking at it as an opportunity for technical assistance from the field office, where we have had a giant amount of staff turnover in the past 5 years. We have also had a giant amount of procedural turnover in the past 5 years. And so we are looking for them to tell us we're on the right track as far as how we're doing the minutia within that grant program, how we're drawing the money, how we are not so much recording it as far as the books are concerned, but there's a process for filing and for drawing the money from HUD. And the bigger the agency, the more you have other resources available to help you with those draws. So we're going to need to tighten that up, and we're looking for their technical assistance to just tell us we're on the right track. We've made a lot of changes upstairs in the last year as far as how we do this with the new staff that we have online. And so, again, we're looking for affirmation, if you will, of the direction that we've taken it upstairs. And if we're going in a direction they don't want to see, now's the time, tell us, and we will definitely work with procedures. What that has done, though, the amount of information and paper that they've asked for took half of the accounting department offline for about 2 weeks. And 2 of them are still offline, and all they're doing is pulling files and copying things and rescanning and getting it to HUD. So we were very late in closing the books for November. That is why in the committee meeting and in your report, you do not have a dashboard with numbers. I have, though, independently, in advance of the committee meeting and writing that memo, gotten the core financial documents from November and reviewed to make sure that nothing has changed from the report we made last month. And I can say that has not happened. So we are still on the same track we were last month, which means most of our budgets are in the black, if you will. We're running according to budget, and we anticipate continuing to do so. We made a big deal about being in the black as far as budgetarily for that for central office this year, and we're really trying to maintain that progress as we go through the year. The next point in the memorandum addressed the budget. Mr. Sims has addressed that, you know, at some level. I wanted to just give a little bit more. Our first draft cut just from the budget office will be ready for the 17th of this month, which is 1 more week. So if he's listening, Ron, good job, but you know, we still have a little ways to go. I'm meeting with him again tomorrow and again next Wednesday, and we're going to make sure we have that ready to go. At that point, the budget process will take a new form. And this is rather exciting because in an agency like this, the budget process takes on the personality of the CEO. And 2 CEOs back, we had a certain process. Those of you who've been around, you remember that. A lot of presentations, a lot of detail. And the staff will remember that. There was tacit participation, but not really so much input was given. It was pretty much, here it is. Mr. Jackson's procedure was to kind of bring it back under finance. He was used to that in a smaller agency where the finance director shuts their door for 3 weeks and out comes a budget at the end of those 3 weeks. His process is going to be different yet. So we're going to create this draft. We're going to sit down. We're going to get all the stakeholders in. We're not going to worry about the fact that your printing budget was $800 last year. What is it going to be this year? We want this budget to be a document that specifically for the property management folks helps them do their job. Not as one's next thing that they have to track and work against, but something that actually helps them to do their job better so that they know their resources. They're not worried about tracking 400 lines down to pennies of detail, but they've got a budget that supports what they need for the next fiscal year and is something that they can then work in with their staff. So we're very excited about the process. It's going to be a very different and dynamic process. I'm putting on the record that I am not going to call a special meeting at the end of June and drag you in here for 10 minutes. We're going to get the budget passed at the regular June meeting. The public hearing will be in May. The committee will be very involved, beginning at their May meeting. We will start working through. So we will have their input through the whole process. And then we'll be able to incorporate all of the programs from the city side and the housing side and get that budget document straight. A brief update on the audit. We don't like to talk about the audit, but the audit is ongoing. The financial statements for HUD in a form of their unaudited submission based on HUD regulations. We have to submit our financial statements twice. We have to make them aware that we are actually doing the work and send them something by the end of August every year, 2 months in, that is not audited. That is statutory, and it goes back to housing regulations in the 80s, but what they really want to know is that you're working on closing your books and you're not waiting for the auditor. So those statements actually, and I've kept this a secret, but those statements were actually approved by HUD 2 days ago. So that's how fast HUD's on the ball. We submitted that at the end of August, and they approved it 2 days ago. So that's a working process with them, but at least we have an approval on our submission format. The auditors got the financial statements yesterday, and so we'll be working on the financial piece of the audit as we go through. And then finally, what I want to talk about briefly, we are talking with the committee, Mr. Sims and I, as far as our development initiatives, about taking a piece of our reserves and making a dedicated advance fund, if you will, so that we have a source of funding to bring a consultant in to work on X project, and then we would anticipate always being reimbursed, and always, as we earn developer fees, increasing this. I look at this, as does Mr. Sims, as something that if we seed it with X million dollars, that in 5 years we've doubled it or more. But that we have a source so that we don't have to come back to the board and say, oh, we need $14,000 to do advanced A&E work on whatnot. What we would do is work through the committee once the full board approves a dollar amount and how we set up this fund. Then we can work through the committee with individual authorizations, and that wouldn't need to come to the full board every time we use the money. I know there was a fund in the past that was set up called the Working Fund. That was reconciled and closed during the COVID period. So we're working to set that back up. But one of the rules that we will ask the board for in this case is that this funding is not for anything other than an NRHA initiative. All right, we don't want to advance money for somebody else's project. Yes, sir.
What's the label? What are we going to label this fund?
What was the question?
What are we going to call this fund?
In the
call the Working Fund in the past.
We don't, and I don't want to confuse that. No, yeah, and I don't want to use that. What I put in the memo was Development Advances Fund as a placeholder. We can, as a committee and as a group, decide on what we call it. But rather than piecemeal taking this much money from discretionary reserves today to use for that, and then tomorrow getting a little bit more, it's easier for us as a company, if you will, for our accounting also to establish a dollar amount that's fair, that is not going to impact our operations in any other way, and then report on it separately as its own unit. And it will pay for certain salaries that we have, which we will then be reimbursed for through development budgets, and it'll pay for advances on programs. So we will have further discussion with the committee and perhaps bring a resolution to you in the February meeting, if not February, for certain March to set this up.
Scott.
Yes, sir.
So the skinny of that, basically, you're trying to create basically a small bank funding for investment projects and things of that nature. Your own, you're going to involve
your own bank, yes. And what we have talked about is if we get to a point with the balances, we can actually soft loan it into projects with expected interest returns. That's applicable within the development projects. So that would be a route we look at also. Yes, ma'am.
Well, okay, again, expected reimbursement, but what's the plan for, we intended to reimburse it. What if we don't get reimbursed?
Mr. Sims yelled at Steve first. This is where, and Ms. Purrier and Mr. Albert will remember, when we did advances with expected reimbursements for entities not NRHA, the reimbursements did not always happen. Where we want to limit the usage of this is our initiatives. So if you will, as an example, we decide to do a renovation of some sort at one of our public housing sites, and I'll be very vague so that nobody can take this in any direction. You need to hire an architect to do your drawings. that architect and the drawings and the expense of that is in the development budget. But you have to expend it before you close on your tax credits or before you close on your loans. So there is a definite expectation of reimbursement because when you do a closing draw against the project, that's in there. So you pull that right back in immediately.
Just how to, does this reside within the domain of the development committee or the finance committee, or both?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, good
Both.
question.
Yeah.
Earl, you're on both. Perhaps you can say, you promise the board that you will, you and your colleagues will vet this and we'll kind of, we'll come up with a recommendation.
That's not it.
Okay, I would say too on that particular piece that as we move forward and get more property specific or more deal specific, you'll see the correlation because we will start talking about not only just the pre-development aspect of the funding, but also the transaction itself. And so, you know, that's when bonds come up, tax credits come up. What is our structure? What is our return? And so that actually impacts pretty much all committees. So, I mean, we will get to a point where probably ad nauseum for some of you who serve on other committees, but it will be kind of a regular theme of, hey, let's talk about this, let's talk about that, and what this aspect looks like.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions?
I just think that it's, you know, this is exciting and somewhat new and something to scope the devil's in the details.
Yes.
And so I think that most of us have a curiosity, hopefully an appropriate curiosity about those details. And so we'll look for guidance from staff and from the committees as this moves forward.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You'll hear a little bit more about just some of the things that we're doing when Steve does his report, but and it'll start kind of beginning to fill in the details around what that looks like.
I like it, but there's a...
Yeah, no, you're right.
And do I hear you saying we'll cover some of that prior to the resolution?
Yes.
Yes.
Some of that,
Yes.
prior to the resolution.
Okay, thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, sir. Who's next up?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My first time speaking in front of all of you. I have been here for about 5 months now, and I can say that I am happy to be here. It's a lot of work to do, a lot of problems to solve, and we are solving them. One of the things I wanted to talk about today is our occupancy, because that's where it all begins for us, and some things that we're doing to try to make that process better. We have put our property managers in charge of leasing their own vacancies. We still have our occupancy department that's helping with the process, but it runs a lot smoother when the property is responsible for leasing their own vacant units. That process is going well. It is helping to bring the vacancy numbers down. And I'm happy to say that we have them all in training so they know what the file should look like. One of the other things that we've done, as Nathan has spoke about, is our maintenance team, which is also going a lot smoother because we have a maintenance director and an assistant director for our one maintenance department. All of our specialized maintenance staff have been given a new home in the community. They will continue to do specialized maintenance for the agency, but they just have a new home. We have a call center that I'm hoping to push the button on next week. We have everything all set up. We have the staff ready to go. We have the phone line set up, and we'll do a soft launch, and we're going to start with Oakley Forest as the pilot for that call center. That way we can get the kinks out, we can see if we need to add any additional staffing or whatever we need to do to make the whole work order process run a lot smoother so that we can have good records, good reporting, and then we can get those work orders completed and closed out. We also put together a turn crew. We faced some vacancy challenges. So we put together a turn crew to help get all of our units ready as our occupancy department gets applicants ready to put into these vacant units. Some challenges are, we have units that we're leasing, and then we also have units where we have to get possession of the unit for various reasons, lease violations. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, and we're challenged with that. But we are all getting together, even in our committees, to try to come up with ways to look at the reasons why we're getting possession of these units, and to help with that process, to, eliminate that, not eliminate it, but to make those numbers less. The final thing that I want to talk about today is our compliance department. We have added staff to our compliance department. We added 2 members. This will help us to get better audits. More importantly, we added a consulting firm that will view 100% of our new admission files to make sure that we stay in compliance with the regulations for all of our programs. Our annual recertification files, which is also very important that we follow the regulations on those, we'll have them look at those files as well. So that'll help us to get better scores when our files are looked at by HUD or by the IRS for our tax credit program. And that's pretty much all the updates I have for today. It's a lot of moving parts. We have a lot going on. It's all good stuff, though. Any questions?
I heard you mention you have a turn crew, so that's like the turnover to units and things of that nature.
Yeah.
What was the question?
Oh, no, I was asking, I said, I noticed you said you have a turn crew that turns over the units. Like, what's your average turn time on these units?
Well, those numbers are kind of high right now. It's going more than 30 days.
Okay.
But with the turn crew, we are looking to get it to be past that. So we put together, it's 10 men that we put together. We started at Young because that's where most of our vacancies are. And it's been about a month now, maybe 5 weeks, and we've seen a big difference. So, yeah.
Awesome. So these are like individuals, like contracted out, or are they actually on staff?
They're staff members.
Okay.
Yeah.
You had mentioned a pilot project in Oak Leaf for the call center.
Yes.
How long do you anticipate that project to last before you release it for your business use across the system?
I was hoping that it wouldn't go any longer than 90 days, that we can do, then we can move on to another community. Okay. Yeah.
Speak to me then, this is going to cover the entirety of our properties. It's called
the entire agency at the end. Yeah.
We have a patchwork for complaints. I mean, if a tenant has a request for service now or maintenance, does that go, where does that call go to the?
Well, right now, that process isn't going to change for the resident. It's going to change for us. Okay. So the resident calls the community, and during office hours, the community takes the work order and puts the work order in. After hours, our answering service takes it. That process is not going to change.
If this is a pilot program, that you're rolling out for one particular area, what metrics are you using to determine its success to then apply to the broader initiative?
Well, we'll monitor the program with the staffing, just the number of work orders that are coming in, to make sure that none get missed, that there's no gaps. So we'll just have to monitor and see what it is that we need moving forward. We've already tested it, so we're pretty confident that this is going to be better for us.
And Dr. Smith asked a question that I was also interested in, which would be kind of the key performance indicators of this and the metrics, and some specificity around that. I know you're working on it, but what are kind of timeframes? I'm a little nervous, and we hear a lot about maintenance. And I know you all do
The
too.
call center?
That, but the call center, which I love the idea of having some kind of a, kind of a management system for the call center. I get a little nervous about, after hours going to an answering service, I'd like a little more information at some point about what the expectations are about that, because usually when people call in the middle of the night, it's an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you can't staff it 24/7. I'm not, I just, some more information.
Well,
about
we have to have an answering service.
Absolutely.
And it is working for us and every other property management company that takes 24-hour maintenance calls. So the answering service, they get to call. We have an emergency number. And when someone calls after hours, it's the answering service that answers the call. They, in turn, will call the staff member that's on call. We have a rotating schedule, and then the work orders get taken care of after hours. So we have to have an answering service, and it actually is working.
So you actually handle the work order after hours as well? It's not
Absolutely.
It's not just an incoming, receiving call and then you process the next day?
No, when we have emergencies at night, we all know what emergencies are. We actually do have a list just in case somebody doesn't know. We respond after hours. We always have a staff member. We have the maintenance supers, who also make sure that someone will go out, that someone's answering the phone. So someone's always going to show up for an emergency after hours, always.
I think what the board is trying to kind of say really, and you probably are already doing this, when they talk about key performance indicators are like time it takes to close out tickets, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you receive the ticket, the time that it takes for the ticket to be resolved, versus when you didn't have the call service center. So it's just comparing what you're doing now to what wasn't actually in process before. So I kind of think that's what we're trying to kind of say, like when you're talking about.
So the time that it takes to close a ticket out?
Yeah.
Under normal conditions, sometimes there are factors that doesn't make things happen right away. Under normal conditions, for example, if someone goes out after hours, if they complete the work, the next morning, the work order gets completed in the system.
Yeah. So they just want a metric for that. Like, hey, look, we had 10 tickets last week. It took us on average 5 hours to take care of this, or 2 days, and these were major plumbing, sewer, whatever the case may be. Because like to your point, not every call is going to be I can finish it in an hour. You may need to get an industrial snake to snake out the system. So, we know that there's going to be variables, but you can see, hey, for the minor emergencies at a lower level, on average, you take care of it that day, but for the larger ones, it's 2 days, or whatever the case may be,
Yeah, I need to take a look at that, and I can get that information as far as the numbers of work orders that we receive and the ones that we close out timely.
Yes.
Sometimes it takes a while, for whatever the reason, but we always respond to emergencies, but they don't always get closed out same day.
I understand.
So,
Did you want to say something on that?
No, I just wanted to point to that. I think in terms of, you get the gist of the question. It's similar to what we're talking about as we deal with our unit turnover, right? Somebody says that they're going to move out. There's an inspection. There's a turn crew. There's a assessment made, a crew assigned, the unit is turned over. Similar kind of concept, right? So,
yeah.
A call is made. It is routed. How long does it take to route? What is it assigned? Where is it assigned to? How long does it take for that person to at least do initial assessment? How long does it take them to close out the work? So we're just trying to set the expectation around, on average, okay, it takes us, 8 hours, 4 hours to assign, respond, close out. And so we're just developing kind of that baseline. So it's just the data behind that supported the action.
Okay. Yeah, the call center is going to be all things work order, and they will be tasked with following the process through. They do have a facilities manager who is in charge of the call center that is tasked with following that process to make sure, one, that the job actually gets completed and that the work order actually gets closed out timely. So we are hopeful that it will go as we need it to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I think ultimately what we're all trying to do as a team is build a base around expectation, right? It's nothing perfect.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We want to build a window.
Yeah.
You know, between 8 and 12 hours, these type of calls need to be handled. Between 24 and 48 hours, you know, so you can build an expectation.
Okay.
If not, you know, these people govern themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Agreed. The expectation part is, I'm sorry.
Do I hear you saying that it'll be the, facilities manager that will be collecting, this data and, kind of packaging it for us and be the person that will report back?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for me, the expectation part is, you know, if you set expectations, you know, I mean, what gets measured gets done. And, you know, so I like the idea of, well, you know, we closed it out in this amount of time, you know, but it would be good to know, are we closing things out more quickly? People know that we're expecting a quicker response, the whole setting of the expectations, which may take you a bit. It may take you a while to get that benchmark data to find out what's reasonable. Because I really like this idea of the turn crew. I think that's great, because you're solving, you know, what the problem you're trying to solve is. And it's the same thing with this. You know, you don't want to be setting unrealistic expectations.
Right.
If you don't know what the problem is. But I think that as you continue to drill down on this, you know, that idea of expectations becomes critical.
And you know, it might be necessary, as we talked about in our committee, on the other day, because all of this is about helping our residents to feel that their needs are being taken care of. That at some point, let the residents, maybe even by way of survey, let you know and let us know how well this program is working for them.
Okay.
Because they're typically the ones that's being affected by if my toilet is stopped up, how long does it take to unplug it? So we talked about surveys in our committee.
Mm-hmm.
It may be necessary for us to go back at some point to our community and say, how well of a job are we doing?
Okay.
And then I think I'd like to see that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. The good thing is that, you know, the staff that we have picked to do the call center was the staff that was previously in charge of our specialized maintenance, which was a well-oiled machine. They scheduled the work, they followed the work, they reported on the work, they did worksheets. So instead of them doing it for our specialized maintenance crew, they will now, as the call center, do that for our entire agency. And they've done a well job. So I think that we'll be able to get some good reports to you about this. Yeah.
Just a curiosity, are we getting many out of normal working hours emergency calls on our properties?
We do. There's some every night. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Some more than others, but it happens every night.
Does it cause every imaginable problem, or there are certain types of problems that are you know, kind of recurring?
It's pretty recurring, you know, clogged toilets, leaks, things that we are required to go and respond to after hours.
Plumbing and heating issues?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm all right now. Let me say, we do have some listeners that are online that can't hear us because we're speaking so low.
Okay.
Oh,
But chief among those people who are listening and can't hear us is me.
You can't hear?
I just asked Joni a minute ago that I need to sit a little closer to the podium because I am really not hearing any of what's going on. I know I'm watching a good meeting. And, so I'm going to have to get my seat a little closer up there to hear. I haven't understood a word you said. I've heard you up there, Yvette, but I haven't understood a word you said, you know, nor can I understand the speaker. So we're doing it for the online people, but our benefit. And so please, let's try to speak so that we can all, just a little side note.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
I didn't discern a difference, but maybe if you spoke closer and louder, you have a soft voice, and so.
That's the first I've heard that.
Well, you do, you know. So,
Can I answer any questions for you about property management?
no, I used to be a property manager years ago in another life.
Me too.
I know quite a bit about this. Actually, when they're talking about, I think we had quite a bit of discussion a minute ago around call center and what that does is we're trying to project how much time it takes to do a particular job, if you will. We know how long it takes to turn a traditional unit, but a lot of times you have exceptions to that. Somebody's had a more robust time destroying the electrical sockets in the house, or water elements, or those kind of things. Traditional units where you just gotta replace light bulbs, clean the floor, paint it again, put some new flooring down. That's, 1, 2, 3. But sometimes it's more in depth, so we know that time varies.
It does.
I understand what goes in it, and so whatever you guys were talking about a minute ago, I'm with you.
Wow, I wish I had known early on that you couldn't hear me.
I don't have any questions for you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Any questions for Yvette? Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Now, you did say that was the last thing you were presenting on. I heard that. You said that's the last part of your presentation, right?
I'm finished.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brother Morales.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Bonjour.
So in your packet, we have a report from the development group. First thing, I do want to go back and I do want to go back and talk about what Scott talked about, in that, this is a happy day for me. I just got told I'm going to have some money to spend, and that's wonderful. The paying back now, that will be a little more. But just to sort of underscore that, when we get into any one of our major transformation work, and in particular, I'll use an example, as we move forward with the conversion of the mid-rises to a RAD conversion and a LIHTC deal, our pre-development costs to get to close will be over $1 million before we get there. And that's kind of typical. So that's when we go into that project, that's what we're thinking about. But as Scott said, is that will be eligible when we go to close, and so most of that or all of that comes back, and so that will be the goal. And with respect to how we go forward with those deals, yes, the development committee and the finance committee, that we will essentially have two-part work where we come into the development committee, gin up the deal, go through it, get to where we need to be, and then translate that into a budget. Then we go to the budget committee for that process. So really looking forward to that work. In your packet, we have a report from development, and we cover a number of items. We cover capital fund. We cover the Choice Neighborhoods project, the St. Paul's project, Tidewater. We cover home and HomeNet. We cover transformation, just some narrative at this point of some items that are moving forward. And then we also cover real estate, or real estate acquisitions or sales. Things to highlight with, particularly with capital fund, we are, even though we were just at the board very recently for 23, we are already going to be starting the 24 planning, and really the 24 and 25 capital fund planning work. It's part of the annual plan work, and we don't have our HUD numbers yet, but we will be well advanced so that when the HUD numbers are here, we'll be at the board instead of November or December of this year. It will be April when we're looking to go for the annual plan, as we typically have done in past years. On transformation, a key thing that I want to highlight is that we're bringing in a number of consultants that we have under contract to work with us about the deals. And in particular, we have RAD consultants and mixed finance consultants who will work with us on those mid-rise transformations, as well as bringing on consultants to have us start looking at the family properties for future transformation. There's a lot of work that goes into figuring out, conditions, physical needs, what has life and not life in our apartment communities, and moving those forward to what's sort of the next step. So we're bringing on some consultants. We've highlighted some of those names on the transformation page in the report, and we will continue to add folks as necessary as we move forward with those projects. Another big one, we have a lot of stuff in there. Well, one page on CNI, and I try as concisely as possible, mostly on the physical items, just give the overview of where we're at with the budget, where we're at with what the expectations are on the delivery of housing units, and then where each of those housing phases are in the process. You know, we know from recently the first phase is opened. We're in full lease up. Folks are already moving into those projects, into Reunion, Origin, which is the second part of phase one. They're supposed to get their temporary COs this week for half the project, and they'll get the remainder, the final CO for the other part of the project by the end of the month. So we're in full lease up of the first phase. We are also under construction on the second phase. The third phase, we are in the pre-development world, where we are still assembling final financing and getting ready to close with HUD and with Virginia Housing on the tax credits and with the banks on the loans July of this year, and then that project will also be under construction. The last phase, we are working through some financial gaps, and we'll be probably for the balance of the year looking at some value engineering work on the design, some slight probably redesign based on some conditions at the property, and then as well as going after a variety of funding sources in order to close the gaps. But we have plans on all of that, and all of those are moving forward. We still have a hope that we're going to close on that fourth phase later this year, late this year, but most likely it'll probably be early next year. A big item.
Next calendar year or next fiscal year?
Next calendar year, sorry. So in 25. So we have phase 3 closing this year in July of 2024, and probably phase 4 will probably slip to a close in early 2025.
Yeah, this and I know you're not ready for questions yet, but I just wanted to say this is really important to me, because some of these projects, I remember us going out with our committees and committing to the residents that we're going to get these things done. And so this is really valuable and important, Steve. I appreciate it.
I mean, the key takeaway is that it is all in hand and moving forward, that there are some financial obstacles brought on by what we've seen in inflation over the last few years, but bit by bit, we are solving all of those obstacles and continuing to move forward. The one item I want to highlight today, and actually right after this meeting, NRHA staff is meeting with the city staff, and we're working on starting the planning for Developers Forum at the end of March. Again, this is an initiative brought by the executive director, and it's sort of bringing folks in, looking at the NRHA properties, the city properties, and really having a good conversation with the development community and others about opportunities in the city of Norfolk moving forward. So this is it'll be a good day where a lot of conversation, a lot of work, essentially to move forward with the redevelopment opportunities that we have in the city. So we're just starting that planning. We hope in the next couple of weeks to have the information out to hold the date and location and day set up. And so be looking for that in the next couple of weeks. But that will be a big event, and obviously everybody here will be invited to that, and I think it'll be a great day for us all.
So Steve, can I ask you, this would be a forum to begin the process of fostering public-private partnerships that would be characteristic of where we're going with this? Is that what you're speaking about?
Absolutely. We know from authority basis that when you're looking at transformation of any of our sites or major sites, you can't do it alone. And there are folks locally and nationally that can bring a lot of talent and resources different ways of thinking in order to get things done. And so, yes, it's an opportunity to look for basically those private-public partnerships, much like what we did with the Hope 6 and with CNI. With Hope 6, the Community Builders was brought in, a national firm that worked with us on there. And with CNI, it was Brinshaw out of the Midwest, also a very experienced developer.
One of the things I want to add to that, as we met from a development committee this week, I had a challenge for Steve and calling Nathan out a bit here with this is, with the landscape of, what we have going on in these communities changing. Some of the lots and things that we have when we talk about public-private partnerships, I've challenged Steve with coming up with ways where we can keep an equity stake in some of these projects, right? We have private, we already have private properties, like Park Terrace and where we have income coming in, right? Like I know sometimes we sell off a lot of these lots and things of this nature, but we only get a one-time lump sum for these things, right? That money comes and goes, right? Like where the housing authority is going, right? We're losing more money from HUD and things of that nature, so we have to create more ways of having income. So I want to challenge our development committee on things that we build, the housing authority. Let's keep an equity stake where we can have some residual income coming in that's long-standing, right? That when we're gone, right, we'll be able to say, hey, this is what our portfolio is. This is what the type of income that we're bringing in for the housing authority, so that we can have something that's long-standing. So that's my challenge for the committee, the development committee, and the commissioners here. So I definitely like to see us do a public-private partnership where we can have an equity stake in some of these developments.
One of the key things, and to address that point, one of the consultants that we brought in, one of their tasks is actually going back and looking at some of our older deals to look at those and to see how we could have done it better. And essentially, as we set those goals about what we're hope to do, goal from transformation as well as to deliver back to the agency, that would be one of the things that they would look at.
Thank you.
With that, I was just giving an overview today. One of the things in the report that we put out for the board this month is I do hope to get any feedback from board members along with questions, but feedback on other things that you want to see in the development report, other items that you don't see that you would really want to hear about. Get that feedback to us to make sure that we continue to bring that. We'll look to have greater detail when we get to the development committee, the finance committee, or the public housing committee as we take these reports through those different groups also.
Well, one of the things that I think I was thinking about as Therion was making his comments about actually giving us a sort of a challenge charge. But I thought about our committee on economic inclusion and Julius and what is he? Dr. Norman. Oh, here he is. And Edward Lewis met yesterday. I was supposed to be in the meeting, and I missed it. I didn't have it on my calendar, but they met, and so every opportunity like this presents an opportunity for us to maximize some other areas where we have goals and objectives and that kind of thing. And so that's a good starting point for us internally, don't you think? You agree, Commissioner? So that's good that you're taking feedback like this. And I'll go one step further and say one of the things that has occurred to me over the last couple of months, I know you guys say finally, but one of the things that occurred to me is sort of trying to set the rudder. The saying is that the direction of the ship is not determined by the direction of the wind, but the setting of the sails. And so we're attempting to set the sails now on this master ship here. And one of the things that has occurred to me is one guy can't do it. And you guys being the board, and staff, but particularly the board. We have a very diverse board, both in profession, discipline, expertise, skill set, experience, and background. And you've demonstrated the value of that to the board, to me, over the last 2 or 3 months. And so I really appreciate it, and I see the need for all of us being involved in the directional setting, if you will, setting of the sails, if you will, of this ship, and how much less of a heavy lift it is when we're all working together to achieve those goals, objectives that are set. And I just kind of wanted to express my appreciation and tell you guys that please don't let up in giving of your talents and your skills and your experiences. Please keep bringing that, because it's proven to me just in the last 2 or 3 months to be invaluable. I mean, really. And we got a lot of challenges in front of us. Suzanne and I were talking about that recently. And but we're well able. And so I see a great direction for this organization now. And we see it kind of coming into focus. We have some leadership that has done some sort of non-traditional setting, if you will, and I think it has the potential to carry us to great heights, recognizing that the HUD formula won't be there forever, recognizing that the free money won't be there forever, but we still can be a master organization that's providing an outstanding service to our constituents if we just kind of get outside of the mindset of, let's see if HUD's got it. And so, good leadership, great support from the team here. I thank you all for it. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Any other?
Yeah, question, please. You began to speak about, maybe the mid-rises and when you began to move families for whatever upgrades and things might take place. Are you able to speak to how you will go about the relocation of those families?
Not at this time. That is the key item over the next 6 months to resolve. A lot of discussion has already gone on about that approach and sort of key, when you look at with the mid-rises, how disruptive it can be to move some of the families out of the mid-rises. And, even if you have vacancies in other communities, which we may need to do, we're moving families from one mid-rise to another, that can be even very disruptive. And so that is, as we move forward, and even one of the items under the developers forum is we look for relocation resources as we look to bring in groups to help us with sort of that determination of relocation, the reformation of a relocation staff with the authority. This is the sort of one of the top items as we go forth in these processes.
Yeah, could you in the future prepare something?
We will have relocation plans for each community, but over the next 6 months, we will be working on sort of solving the relocation question.
Just for clarification on that, and perhaps it's just from my own understanding, does that mean that the mid-rise residents have special needs or different vulnerabilities than other residents of other?
You have a higher proportion of folks that have physical disabilities. So the type and the number of units that are available for relocation are much more limited. So yes, absolutely. Mid-rises are definitely a special case, even though these are going to be temporary relocations. So part of the process will be to limit the amount of time that they're out of their unit. So when you're doing your project, when we're doing our project planning about the full scope renovation of an apartment, you want to minimize how long they're going to be out of that. So all of that will come into play. So a combination of not just relocation, but the actual design or the scope of the work that we do the contract when we do the work, all of that will be taken into account in order to limit that impact on the resident.
And Steve, other kind of softer supports, for lack of a better term. I mean, many of these are elderly residents, and, you know, elderly residents go through move trauma. Just the move, no matter how good it is or where you're going, is traumatic. And so, you know, how we mitigate, I mean, it's necessary, but how we mitigate that impact.
Absolutely. And sort of this week, we've already sort of started taking steps in re-engaging with Shirley Broom in our office, who used to has handled much of our relocation along with Albert in the past, but with Choice Neighborhoods, Hope 6, Moton, et cetera, where we have key staff who are there to work with families. And it is that you have to have somebody that knows the process internally, knows the process externally, but also knows how to work with families through that process. And it is a soft hand that needs to occur. And so yes, so it's making sure that we have a good team in place to work with the family.
And that's exactly what I would like, because they don't like bringing in new people that they don't know them, and then they're shut down.
Yep.
And if I may continue with questions, Steve, and in the category of things under which we have no control, can we get at some point an update on the CNI efforts? I mean, that we used to get a report from them that was
from USI.
Yeah, it was numbers, but it was, you know, how many, you know, what, you know, and some stories about. I know it's more difficult because the Tidewater Garden residents have dispersed, you know, but
not at all. They've just recently had an annual plan, so we will have Nicole Brown from USI come to the committee. Come to the board next month.
It would be great. I've just kind of lost track of what they're doing, where they're doing it, and we're, you know, we're leasing up. I want to know how they're helping with that process. So, thank you.
No, absolutely. Any other questions? Again, feel free, if you have any comments on the report, once the other things, feel free to get those into us, and we'll get those changes made for the next board report. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Who's next? Okay.
Commissioner, I am next. Commissioner Abbott, I'm next. Julius Norman.
You'll make me strip you down on the way up.
Don't knock me down, sir. Don't knock me down.
I can strip you again.
As I come up, I want to say, the first update would be and this is kind of traumatic.
You up and no habit.
I know, it's like I got 3 minutes. I know the challenge. The first update is going to be the coach of Alabama.
Oh, I know.
Has retired.
I know.
And the coach at the Patriots has retired. And one of the things both of them used to say regularly, they used to say, they asked the question, there are things I must do every day. Will I do it? And then the other question, they don't not only say that to themselves, but they ask their team, their staff. And then they also ask, the question was, there are things that I want to do, and do I do it? And do I do it? So those are the questions as I hear everybody go around. I got 2 minutes and 10 seconds left. It was something else I wanted to read, and it goes, restorative activities among community engagements plays a vital role in fostering the sense of connection and well-being among individuals. And it goes on to say that these activities brings people together and contribute to the overall development and well-being of our residents. And it's very important, the development and well-being of our residents. And at the end of this, it says, encouraging everyone to get involved and listen to their ideas and creating safe places where everyone feels welcome. And it talks about inclusivity, getting people involved in decisions that's being made, getting people involved in their own perceived perception of what safety is.
I wrote that, matter of fact. So the reason I said it is because I wrote that. So as we look at community engagement and we look at client services, we're looking at not what used to be, not people holding us accountable and saying how we used to do it. What we're looking at is, we're talking about selling the ship, we're looking at getting people engaged and involved to move us to the now. And one of the things that I know that's to be true as we move people to that area, it has to be restorative. We've heard the words refresh. We've heard the words regain. We also have to hear the words restore. Because as we come out of COVID again, people have been isolated, and we have to do everything that we can to engage folks with dignity to get back in the game, to get back to feeling good, get back to a place where they can be included in the decisions that are being made for them. I love the whole idea of what we are doing. We have done a lot of things great, but sometimes it's just the one or two things that we haven't done so great that makes us look as if we're not doing anything. But we're doing some wonderful things. So I kind of, if you look at your commissioner's update, I have 1 minute and 30 seconds left. That one of the things that we're looking at is creating MSGs, measurable skills gains, and metrics, so that you can see where we currently are, and you can see where we will be going, and you can measure those. And you can look at where we've fallen off, where we need to pick up, and it also gives everybody an opportunity to look at some things that we may be weak at, or some things that we're strong at. But most importantly, by getting our residents involved through recharging and refreshing them, we have a great way of actually giving the perception and actually giving people an opportunity to actually have a say in what they do. So if you look at our most recent update in November, we had a job fair that was hosted at the Alex Theater. We had over 200 participants to come for the job fair. We had over 27 vendors who actually hired people on site. We also were involved in a vendor fair for mental health that was hosted at Calvert Square. And the great thing about that vendor fair that was hosted at Calvert Square, we now have people, actually mental health professionals, that can be on call and right there immediately when traumatic incidents happens in our community. And so that's a huge plus. In addition, there has been partnerships with the Southside Task Force, and that's great. With the Southside Task Force, we're looking at our communities overall throughout the area, not just one sector of what we provide, including HCV, and people are getting involved in that. And we also had our workforce development staff to attend a host of what we call workforce fairs and opportunities in which we actually took residents to those areas where they have an opportunity to look at and have employment on site. If we look at our future actions, we're partnering with the Hampton Roads Community Empowerment Alliance. I don't know if you guys remember, Dr. Dungy Anderson came maybe about 2 months ago. Yeah. And on the 17th of this month, she's going to have an opportunity to talk with TMCs and other residents. The reason that's so great is because with that particular task force, what they're able to do is solicit information from all residents from different sectors of our communities to engage them in things that they like to see, from mental health to employment, their perception of what balance is in our communities. So that will also help us in creating this baseline to see what our residents want and to see how we can improve and engage residents again, resident-driven opportunities to see exactly where we want to go. And yesterday was the first day we engaged with Norfolk Police Department and a leadership program. The reason that's vital is because that gives our young people an opportunity to look at the resources that are available in our city, and helps them to understand exactly how that works, and it also lets them engage into how to use these services. And the last thing I want to say within my last 30 seconds is...
We're going to extend your time.
Thank you so very much. If I have any questions. Thank you, and have a great day.
Oh, you got it.
How are you going to get this information out to the communities and residents?
We are, with our communities, believe it or not, we're doing some old school things in client services. With all of our programs, you literally see us with boots on the ground where we actually walk flyers out to each one of the communities. We also work closely with the resident services staff where we actually put this in their newsletters. We also, with all our schools, especially our feeder schools, we actually work in getting information out to us in our schools. And we also are working with the partnerships are going great in terms of our partnerships with just about everybody that you can imagine, from mental health to employment. We have engaged them. And one of the reasons that we've engaged them is because when you look at client services on a financial side, the partnerships are vital for us to look at it in terms of being cost effective. So we do partner with a lot, we do engage them. And the other part that if you noticed, that we have actually used Calvert Square Envision Center as the hub for a lot of different activities. And with that hub, we've been engaging residents from different communities to come out and engage in different activities. So we do get the word out and word of mouth using that way.
Go ahead, Amy.
Okay.
Take your time.
All right, I'm thinking out loud here.
Yes.
But, I mean, this is really great stuff.
Okay.
And I was thinking, what about, because I remember when I toured the properties, I saw what used to be some gardens, I guess beehives used to be there. What about doing something where let's engage the young people, let's bring that back, teach them how to grow their own produce, and then what about creating their own business and selling that?
Great question. And let's not do that. Let's enhance it, because we continue with the garden in the Calvert Square. We have the Daisy Riddick Community Pollinary Garden. So we do still have that out in Calvert Square. We're also looking at entrepreneur activities where we're partnering with Norfolk State University, Honeybee Brown, where we've actually had kids to go around to a couple of the community colleges, TCC, and they also went out to Virginia Wesleyan to look at the bees and to look at, actually, we did samples of the honey. The reason that was important is because the next step of the apiary with the bees is that we actually want to put small transmitters on the back of the bees. So with that pollinary garden and with the garden itself, a couple of things. We're developing what we call engineers and scientists. The young engineers are looking at ways to provide irrigation for that garden, capturing rainwater. And the scientists is that what we're doing with that by putting these transmitters on these bees is that we also work with the city to ask city to plant pollinary flowers within a 5-mile radius. The reason that happens is because as these bees begin to collect the honey, we look at it and evaluate is the honey, is the pollination, is it the honey different colors? Is it sweeter? Is it, so we're actually doing that, and we're doing that with our young people with our science program.
That's absolutely amazing.
Yes.
Why isn't the news reporting on this?
I like that.
We need to hear this good stuff.
Right.
This is what we need more of.
That's right. You know, one of the things you spoke of was we had a traumatic event on a property, and I think you said that we were doing some things already with regard to that. Commissioner Fraley and I were meeting with some friends of my son and daughter-in-law. They own their own human services company, and they do human service, mental health counseling, mental health services, and all of that. And we had just had the traumatic event in Young, and we were meeting with them about an issue that we were helping them with. But when we got there, as an opportunity for us to speak to Young, and they had already been out in Young's doing counseling, and they were there because Kim Thomas had invited them to be there, and to do some other things, and they were on site immediately following the calamity that blew up there. And so sometimes those strategic partnerships are in place at the exact right time. And at some point, seeking the ear of our legal counsel here, but at some point, I would like to see if we can come together and as a team and do some strategic planning without it being on the front page of the newspaper the next day, because I think that the board, as a unit, and our executive director need to be able to strategically plan some of these things and give them an opportunity to work their way into the process without 1,000 questions about, why? Well, why? Well, why? Let's get going with it. And I think we need a strategic planning session just to help codify some of these ideas and move a lot of this stuff in a way that can be a lot more productive and get more tools for you guys.
And it's interesting that you said that as well. Even in Young's, we're looking at Crestar and Renaissance who provide the services over there. But the other thing that you have to understand about this, although we partner with these private agencies to do those programs, once they handle the immediate trauma that go on, residents still have an opportunity to pick the services that work best for them. Although we may have vetted those, we do encourage that they look at services that best suit their need. And the reason that being is that we don't want to be the one that says, and RHA told us to get this service. That's right. But get the service, and we encourage that, to get the service that works best for you and your family. On the other side, I forgot to mention this. One of the things that is happening now, not just we look at our connectivity activities that we're working with different partners, Cox, AT&T, and all of those in terms of making sure there's connectivity for our young people, anybody who's going into the workforce, or educational training, or vocational training, that they have the connectivity that they need. But one of the great things that I like about what we're doing is that we have a multi-generational program. And that multi-generational program has been engaging different generations of people working together. So we do have the young people who are working with older folk and just doing simple things is how to navigate your phone, get into the computer, and that program has done well. It has done so well that we've engaged a group called Act and Chat, and this Act and Chat group did a theatrical presentation during the Christmas holiday, and they did one where we invited the seniors over. And it was a great program in which the seniors and the young people engaged, and the perception of how the young people portrayed seniors by using walkers and wigs and dressed up. It was quite theatrical to see both the young people and the seniors engage in activities. So when we look at the multi-generational piece of it, it's not just young people with old people of my age, but it's the multi-generational piece where we're getting people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s also engaged. Why is that important? Because it's great to see our 20, 30, and 40-year-olds now engaged into community TMCs and other activities like that to get different ideas and different ways to engage people. So we're excited, and we try to keep excitement going and energy going, and most importantly, customer service, just engaging people with a smile and engaging, creating and developing great relationships. And we think that takes us a long way.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Okay. Any other updates from your department, Nathan? Any committee updates? I'll start with, well, these are, if you will, the commissioner committees. And do we have them listed? Why don't we start with economic development? Who is that? Development committee.
Development.
Yeah.
We kind of gave an update.
Yeah. Do you have an update?
No, that's besides what we kind of talked about.
Okay. All right.
Some of the things we're doing and that we have coming up and some of the challenges that we've set in place. But other than kind of what I added to Steve's presentation, that's all the update that we have.
anyone, any committee met, any board committee met and, want to?
Finance committee this week, Scott gave us pretty much a presentation that was presented today.
Okay.
I have nothing further to add.
Phil, anything you want to add to,
I mean, I want to thank Earl for kind of sitting in. I wound up having something come up at the last minute, so I didn't make it, but Scott did give me the update. I am interested to see more about the proposed elements of this development advancement fund. I think it's a great idea. And as I just indicated, we will vet that process along with the development committee and provide some insight, board relevant insight into how that takes shape.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. Any other committee, Albert?
I'd like to jump in and say.
Please jump in.
All right, on May the 8th, the Public Housing Committee met. Steve Morales, Karen Rose, Misty Beth, was in that meeting. Myself and Commissioner Amy was virtual. I think we had a outstanding sharing of information.
Good.
Amy may want to.
Right, but you said May, but that was January.
What did I?
You said May.
Monday. I meant to say Monday. I was going to write that down.
What do you say, May?
Monday. What am I going to do?
You guys just reporting on that, and you met in May?
All right, Monday, the 8th.
Yeah.
All right, so jump right in if you want to share.
No, you are better versed at this than I'm still learning.
Well, we covered a great deal of information, a great deal of it, of course, you heard from Ms. Edat relative to call centers and the type of things that's going on in the community.
Was Yvette the only staff? You was a staff person representing that committee?
No, Karen Rose.
Oh,
Yeah,
Karen.
Karen, Steve, yeah, I was given the list of those.
Yeah.
Karen, Rose, Steve.
Executive contact, you say the staff.
Yeah.
First, Ms. Thompson is the executive contact for the committee.
Okay. But the staff person assigned to it.
Ms. Ms. Yvette spearheaded the meeting.
All the directors are, they're looking for, the respective communities. They're still staff,
Okay.
but all the directors here are staff.
Yeah.
I mean, lead the discussion.
I just was curious if they would have anything else to contribute after you gave insight, if they would have anything to add, that's all.
Okay, all right, well, very well. Because on that afternoon, Ms. Karen Rhodes, she gave significant events of things that are happening in the community. And she will continue to report on those significant events in most committees that I'm working with to give us kind of a matrix of things that is happening, that's going on, so that we can kind of see at a glance of what's happening. The significant events that Ms. Karen gave us, I asked her to go back several months as I had gone back and collected data of the type of violent type things that were happening, along with the police report that she presented, and give us a sense of what type of services the families receive and how we closed out in supporting those families with all of those resources.
That's good. Karen, I heard from the city, the police chief department, that you guys are working with one particular case significantly that has been both challenging and remains tenuous. And I guess you all talked about that some in that meeting. Also, one case where it was really very, very challenging, and both to us and the tenant, the resident.
So, and those will be on her significant events report, kind of look something like this. And I brought it. And so we will have it, because I think we need to know as a committee or as a commission, what's going on at a glance.
Absolutely.
So that we can look at and address those those things. And typically with this matrix, I want to know if we are trending, which direction we're trending. Either in violence or other significant events, if we're trending in the right direction, or if we want to be trending downward in some areas as well. So I'd ask, and let me make sure I say the right, on Wednesday.
On Wednesday. Not wonderful day, but Wednesday.
Yeah, on Wednesday, we met with the Economic Inclusion Committee.
Right.
And although Commissioner Alfonso was unable to be there, he and I did talk on the phone, and he gave us some information, myself, Mr. Julius Norman, and the executive director joined in, and we had an absolute awesome sharing of great information. I won't go into deep detail with it today, but Mr. Norman, along with the ED, they're working on a lot of great events, and we look forward to having more information in regards to that. Commissioner Alfonso did share with us on the phone, and I shared it in committee, that we're meeting with the St. Paul's Advisory Committee. It was a request that the Inclusion Committee will be going to Ms. Marsha McGill.
Yes.
She meets every third Tuesday at 6 p.m. at the food bank.
You take good notes. You take notes.
Did I get that right?
You got it all.
So we'll be joining on the 16th of January to meet with that group, because
that's my birthday too, so.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody will be celebrating, but I'll be there.
All right. We're gonna meet with that advisory committee, and on Tuesday, Mr. Alfonso, we will meet again on the 13th of February. Was that the agreement, Mr. Norman?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if you would put that on your calendar.
I got it. I'll do it right now.
Tuesday, February the 13th, 1:30. We put in 1:30 to 2:30.
Okay.
And if that works for you, we can talk about that.
It absolutely will work.
Okay. We'll talk about that offline.
And there are things that, Elwood, just for clarity as it relates to our collaboration from the city.
Yes.
You know, the whole St. Paul's Advisory Committee, with regard to St. Paul development, you know, that's us. Yeah. I mean, I know it's city driven, but that was our project, developed through the CNI grant that, we submitted with the CNI grant, and it happens that the city's driving it now, but we are a significant partner to it, because it's the people that we both have charge of providing housing for, other housing resources and services, and it's in our communities that we are reshaping. And also, Nathan, comes back to why it's necessary to do some strategic planning, because we have to plan for other initiatives like that. And economic inclusion is a big piece of what we want to get out of that, as does the city. It set goals in their procurement process to do that. So just you know, to count.
Yeah. And in closing, I would just like to say what I've shared with both the Public Housing Committee and the Economic Inclusion Committee is that, and you said it just a moment ago, strategic planning. I wasn't available when we did this strategic planning. Many of you were, maybe Ms. Suzanne and others, but I asked each of our committees to go back and review and refresh, if you will, the strategic planning, and kind of take some of the steps that is in this strategic plan and help us to know where we are in moving toward finishing up or knowing where we are in this plan.
Good.
So the ED and I spoke about it in that committee as well. I just think we did a great job with this whenever you all did it, okay? But I don't know, I'd ask everyone to review it if you haven't, because I think there's a lot of great information that can give us kind of some marching orders as to how we should be performing and or have some measured outcomes of what this strategic plan asks us to perform.
Amen.
So I'd ask that both committees, which talks about certain matrix. And I know people don't like the sound sometimes of matrix, but it gives us a snapshot for the Board of Commissioners as to, you know, what we could take a look at and what we could be doing. Thank you so much. That's all I have.
Can I just add, one thing we also discussed with the Public Housing Committee, challenges regarding occupancy that also involve safety issues.
Right, yeah.
Where our biggest occupancies are, also there are concerns for safety issues, and maybe that's a driving factor for those occupancies. What can we do about that?
Right. And I'm glad you said that, Amy, and that I think Ms. Yvette said in Young Terrace alone, I think there could have been about 100 or more vacancies. And so we did talk about, you know, let's see what we need to do, and, you know, and she spoke to it in getting those vacancies filled and across all of our communities.
All right.
So the two committees on which I serve, I've been a terrible representative.
You haven't met?
We've done nothing.
Oh, okay.
So, partially, the Housing Choice Voucher Committee, we really think we need,
Is that you and Rose?
yes, it is.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, it's still in the form, but we think we need Pam for that. And so we want to give her the space and ability to, so, and then the Safety and Civic Engagement Committee, I needed to schedule quickly, and I appreciate staff's.
It's our New Year's resolution.
So, I'm sorry?
Well, our New Year's, with that committee will meet.
It will, and it was interesting, because there's intersections among all these. And so we got some data around the safety committee, and it's interesting, because the trend is going down, but perception is different than data. So it's like, how do we, what problem do we solve? Again,
and that's at a national level.
Yes, it is. So, I will get my committee members together and get back on the horse.
Well, just to let you know around that particular piece, and I think it's helpful for everyone. You know, the last couple of meetings, it's just been kind of jammed. And so what we're trying to do is use after today, right? So after every meeting, we're using the 4 weeks ahead of the next meeting. So some committees require, like finance requires reconciliation of our votes. So that probably would be a little bit later and still into the following month. So for February, for example, some other activities may not require that, so that we can do those a lot earlier, so we can do some committee meetings prior to the end of this month for ahead of February's meeting. So that's what we're going to start kind of working towards now. So everybody has enough time. Everybody has been, I give the staff a lot of credit. I was the one sending a lot of emails about this on the whole of the holiday, making sure that everybody here, everybody there, in terms of, you know, hey, we have to get these reports done, and there's a lot of things that need to happen. And so, you know, I think that, you know, so we don't drive Joni crazy, that, you know, we get the next we're using the 4 weeks after each board meeting to begin to kind of schedule that and try to schedule them as early as possible to give everybody as much flexibility as possible. But some of the meetings will be a little bit later in that schedule, like I said, where we need numbers as to kind of reconcile to know where we are.
I would like to make sure that our meeting, that we're scheduled for more than 30 minutes. Now, I don't know how many committees can meet within 30 minutes, but we needed more time, did we, Ms. Yvette? You did good.
Yeah, we've been well over 30 minutes.
Yeah,
we're gonna get there.
That's fine. But I think the conflict was, you may have sent out for 30 minutes, but when I got the email, it said from 11 to 12. So I was operating within an hour.
Well, let's set them for an hour. I think. I don't know that
We need to standard, so that's when you set them, ED or whomever.
Yeah, no, that'll be
Let's set them for at least
an hour. Yeah.
I think once we get to the cadence, I told this to the staff, I mean, prior, my prior housing authority, we had three committees
operations. Once you start standardizing in terms of the type of information, how we think about information, they were like mirror copies of one another, and we literally were in and out. Even though they were scheduled for an hour, we were in and out generally in about 30 minutes. So, I mean, so that's like the benchmark at the end of the day. For hour for sure, I think it'll get a lot easier.
But Nathan, one of the things I'd like us to maybe, keep, focus on is, it is a board committee, so staffing it, you know, we don't wanna, staff has maybe a little more internal knowledge and they can get in and out quicker, but sometimes the board, that's the only time that the board gets to meet with each other.
Yeah.
And so they need to have the time to, you know what I mean, flesh some things out. And so, if we could kind of standardize that time for at least an hour and have the board chair, that, and the staff is there to really kind of support us with, information, with, so, kind of, let's focus that way, and you know what I mean? I mean.
No, you're right. No, I'm saying, I'm just saying, my point around that was not, and this is me just saying, when we get to the point where it is standardized information, there is obviously will lead to the conversation. My point is, we went into a meeting that was prior, and I see that happening now, because I think in terms of finance, development, and even on the public housing side, the information that we're always talking about the type of information that people want to see. So once we start standardizing that information, the update piece kind of goes smoother. The conversation piece is however people want to drive it. So that's just saying, like, naturally it would be like, hey, if we're checking these boxes, and I don't mean to say it like that, but this information makes sense, or there's an overview to give, we give it. And generally, from there, if the discussion amongst the members is sufficient, you're usually just in and out. That was the only point I'm making.
No, I get it. I do. I don't want to beat the dead horse. I'm gonna let you have your say. I just want to.
Oh, no, it'll still be an hour. No, I'm just saying, I'm not saying that we shorten it to 30 minutes.
Oh, no, I got it.
And all I want to say is, I believe that once we come together as a committee, and if we're getting all of our questions answered, and I think you're saying in the document, then, you know, we have that before us. We won't have to do a lot of asking of questions, because we're just early meeting, so there's a lot of questions about the direction that we're moving. And I do want to make this point, because part of what we're supposed to be doing, Amy and myself, we said we're meeting with the residents to hear their questions, their concerns. And I was asking, well, when are we going to meet with the residents to hear what the residents are saying and feeling about what's happening?
And that's what I was about to say.
And and so what I want to get to is, when the question was asked, I think what the answer was, Ms. Yvette mentioned that a survey would be done. And that survey will kind of initially go out, get all of the stats, whatever that we need, and then we'll come back on that. And I think I'd asked Mr. Norman to do a survey in regards to some information relative to inclusion, how many families may have bank accounts, so that we're not constantly, you know, dealing with families who are just financially poor, and we're trying to help them to, you know, so surveys are going to be important to help answer some of our questions.
Yeah, and each meeting will have different metrics, but I just wanted to make the point that I don't want the efficiency of the meeting to be the goal. That's the whole point I was making. If the efficiency of the meeting becomes the goal, then it's gonna lose the purpose that we have. So that was my whole point. And I think everybody has the right understanding of where we are now, so.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Any other?
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
About the efficiency of meetings, because in our finance committee, we've met well over an hour.
See? And,
It didn't bother me a bit, I had the time.
Huh? What'd you say?
It didn't bother me a bit, I had all the time.
That's it. Well, are there any other, updates?
Well, Mr. Chairman, if you'll allow me, I just want to raise a question on some old business, maybe.
I will allow you.
Mr. Sims, I'm wondering if you could give us any update. Are all of the issues associated with the breach of our IT system in the rearview mirror now?
As far as we have discussed, yes. I think we're still trying, I think in some areas, the threat, the initial threat, yes, I mean, it's behind us. I think what we're continuing to do is really kind of understand the ramifications from it and strengthen that. So I would say it's still ongoing to some extent.
And then
we can give a briefing around that.
at least on behalf of the board, I'm going to ask you a question. You know, there was a generic question that we asked of all candidates who came through looking at this position, which was something along the lines of, you know, what are your plans to accomplish in the first 100 days? And we're 50 days plus through that right now, and I'd just like to know how you're feeling about how confident that, you know, and how much your expectations are being met of what you envisioned being able to do and what you've been able to accomplish since you've been.
No, I think that's a great question. I appreciate that. It's been great, to be honest. I mean, I know that there's a lot of challenges in its relationship building, and some of it is inside the building, and some of it is outside, for sure. And so, you know, I've been able to connect with all of you on various matters, and I appreciate that. You know, as you can tell by the team in their presentation today, I mean, there's a lot of things going on. I mean, and that.
Well, I will tell you, just based on the conduct of this meeting, it's very clear that you assembled a good collection of people supporting your efforts.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I support them, and just to be clear.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll ask you, we have a new commissioner coming on board, Adam Casagrande. Can you tell us anything about him?
He's, I do know that, he's a recovering, he's a retired attorney. I was about to say recovering attorney, but you know I didn't recover from that. I do know that, and I do know, that, we were expecting him, this, meeting. I'm gonna follow up with the person that both nominated him, which was, Councilman Thomas, and find out if his expectation was the same. I know the council approved it, and,
is he filling just the short term left by Don's
Yeah,
departure?
that's it.
So
And,
his position will have to be renewed again
absolutely. Which there are two of us operating on that right now. That's me and the vice chair commissioner per year. And so I feel you weren't here when in this city when Billy Robinson was an attorney in the city. Did you know him, Amy? Well, his son Trevor used to be on the board, and he couldn't. I think his son still practices around here, but he couldn't make an in-person meeting, and he kept missing it and violating that particular. So they asked me to come in and fill his term, and then I had to come on my own after that. And Suzanne, another commissioner, Bob Sobel, passed on the board, and Suzanne came in and completed his term, and the same will happen with this position with Don. Don still had 6 months left on his term, and so when Commissioner Adams, I think, when he comes, but I haven't met him. So, do you know him? Anybody? You know him? Delphine, maybe, do you know him too, Amy?
I don't.
Okay, maybe you and I could meet with him for lunch or something.
And he did indicate he would not be able to participate today because of a health issue.
Right.
He
He has a health issue.
So he won't be able to attend the meeting?
Not today.
Oh, not today, okay. I would say they're appointing somebody that can't even come to the meeting. Okay, so I will follow up and see if he can be available for us to meet with him. But I'd like to meet him before he comes in. And you asked some great questions, Phil.
If I could, and I think Dr.
And you can.
Of old business, I would like to, in the way of old business, we talked about once the committees were put together, that we would talk about reviewing our
that's
The
good.
bylaws were amended through
That's good.
March 2001,
Okay,
and they were last signed by Cheryl Montgomery.
okay.
No, I mean, that we've got all kinds of, cleanup to do, the expansion of the number of board members.
Yeah, so it's several things,
Yeah.
that I think we need to look at and go over.
You got a copy?
I do.
Oh, my.
Oh, right.
You are the commissioner in chief.
And with the old letter, with the old.
I've never seen them.
Yeah, so, for point of record and for, future review, I would like to, ask your permission that we set a time for that review.
Indeed, that's,
There you go.
well, look at here. Two of you, maybe we'll make another committee.
All right, thank you so
And
much.
this is literally a very small thing
Yes.
on reports, so there are a lot of acronyms. And some of them are spelled out the first time, but many of them are just acronyms. I'm pretty fluent in acronyms, and I don't even get some of these.
Got it.
So if we could, again, we've just got lots of new people.
No.
Yeah, acronyms,
Oh, yeah,
like-
acronyms, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so like BCR, what's BCR? Broad, yeah,
Broad Creek,
so,
okay.
yeah, and there's no previous reference or, so,
Yeah.
yeah,
What
thank you.
is BCS?
Broad Creek, BCR, Broad Creek.
Oh, I live in Rockville.
No, thank you.
Right.
Yes. All right, thanks.
When I was working, I used to have a hard and fast rule about acronyms that I wouldn't allow it. Well, Ms. Torrance, we don't have anything for closed session today, do we?
I do not use
All right. Well, is there any other business before the board this morning? Nathan?
I'm good.
You good?
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other commissioner have, something that they are just itching to share?
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
You may.
This is a good omen or a bad omen, but this is the first meeting I've attended in my short tenure where there are no residents offering any complaints or other comments. I don't know how we should take that. Maybe you folks have, maybe a little more experience, but.
They came.
Huh?
They came, they saw, and we conquered. No. They came.
And,
I think they like what we're doing.
and we appreciate it.
Yeah, they appreciate us.
We appreciate that. All right.
Anything else for the good of the order? I'll entertain a motion.
So move for adjournment, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Carnes, would you, call for closure?
Sure. Happy to do that. Ms. Arrington? Aye. Ms. Straczynski? Aye. Mr. Conyers?
Aye.
Mr. Fraley?
Aye.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Spurrier?
Bye.
Dr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Alford?
Aye. We are now adjourned. Thank you.
That's okay, I got it. All right.